All right, hello and welcome. It is Geographically Challenged episode number 82, a very special episode. It is our first live episode as we are coming to you from IEM Melbourne, the defrag booth. And of course, you can see we've got Keen and Karath here to talk us through all the happenings at the moment. We'll get to meet Keen and talk about all of his career and stuff like that as well. But before we get too far into all of that discussion, of course, I do have to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of the show, which is Skinclub. I don't know if you guys have seen, but Pilski, Bleh, and I have been doing quite a bit of content over with Skinclub, and if you'd like to check it out, there is a link in the description to the community portal. They're obviously supporting quite a lot of creators, and I like that because they give me money. So thanks, Skinclub. Shout out to Skinclub, and off we go into the episode. So welcome back. It is Geographically Challenged, episode number 82. Keen, for the first time. Welcome.
Hey.
How are you?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you having a good time at IEM?
Oh, yeah. Unreal atmosphere.
And Kev, I think, is it your first time? It's not your first time on Geographic Challenge.
It's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was online. It's been a while, but it's good to be back and chatting a little bit about Counter-Strike, and obviously with someone internationally as well.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, internationally, but domestic. So that's kind of what we want to get into this conversation about. We'll start this off with a bit of a chat about you, Keen, and who you are and what you're doing, because obviously, I think you're a pretty unique case when it comes to Counter-Strike. Just generally speaking, there's not that many imports when it comes to Counter-Strike in Australia. We normally are the ones exporting players. Our best players go overseas. We don't get players coming in. So can we talk about your career a little bit? Obviously, before coming to Australia, you were involved in a few teams overseas. So can you talk me through, where you've come from and what your experience level's like prior to being in Australia?
Yeah, I consider myself a legionnaire. I don't know if it's the same term in English, but in Latvian, that's like,
right.
Yeah, we go abroad, play in different squads, right? That's what I've done. I've played a bunch of international mixes in Europe, and then I had one bout in China, and from that, this came up. So
yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the question for me to start things off, because I think, like I said, you're very unique in the sense that we don't get a lot of people playing from overseas in Australia. So how does a Latvian end up playing in an Australian roster in Australia? Like, how does that even happen?
It was actually funny. I had a friend that was playing in GG How. His name is Minnie.
Yep.
And he invited me to go GG How, move to China, play with them. And one of the players in that roster that was supposed to be playing was Savage, who's an Aussie player. And that's where we met. That's where I met Savage and his father, Ben, who ultimately made this team after. And we kind of fell in love with each other. They had a similar mindset to me. A lot of things clicked, and although that roster didn't work out due to some we didn't like the contracts and stuff, that sort of thing. Even though that fell through, we ended up Ben ended up making an org, right? Ben the Legend, around his son, and his son wanted me. So suddenly I go from China back to Europe, back to, we love each other, let's go Oz, make a team.
Yeah, I mean, as a decision-making process, though, how do you wrangle with that? I don't know how old you are, but you're not super old, are you?
I'm 24.
24. So, okay, we're still fairly young. Let's just say that helps, obviously. But how do you decide to go, okay, look, I'm going to sort of uproot my life, play in China, for example, I'm going to play in Australia? Like, is that not kind of like a wild decision to make, or does that just make sense to you? Because that doesn't make sense to me.
I'd lie if I said I had unreal things going for me back home. I feel like I wanted a change, and here was the opportunity, and I just had to make a leap. And I decided, it's time. It's time. I quit my job even before that, so I had made a leap before. I was working an IT job back home, and then I decided, I want to do this for a living. I quit my job. That was my first leap. Played in a bunch of teams, mixed success. And then another leap came, right? That was moving overseas. All
right, well, let's bring this into a little bit more of a Oz CS-centric discussion, because, again, we are in IEM Melbourne. Everyone here is Australian. Everyone wants to know about what's going on. So, Kev, you're obviously someone that's been involved in Counter-Strike in Australia for a very long time. I'd love to get your thoughts on where you see AUCS now in comparison to the entirety of your career. So let's just say going back over the last 10 years or so, because you and I have been around for a very long time. Where are we sitting in terms of a hierarchy? Is now good? Is now bad? Are we having a rough time? What do you think? Because I have my opinions.
I think now is a very, very good time. I mean, the fact that, once again, we're looking at Kane coming in to play for an Australian team, this was unheard of 10 years ago. As Jordan mentioned earlier, we used to be the talent farm a lot of the time, where people would go overseas and essentially become legionnaires, as you said earlier. So Yeah, it's really, really good to see actually people coming over and go, no, this is actually really, really nice to come over to Australia compete. This is one of the first Tier 1 tournaments we had in quite a while. And we have a very healthy competition at the top level. I feel like you guys are really pushing FlyQuest. And this is something that's always very healthy. I feel like that's always the case of, as soon as you have 2 or 3 Oceanic teams, and I'll still consider Semper-Fi an Oceanic team, pushing and competing against each other, the space is in a very healthy sphere. So,
I would say it's better than it has been, definitely,
Yes.
but it's still got a bit of a ways to go. So I'd love to get, again, your 2 cents actually on this one, Keen, because you've obviously had the opportunity to play kind of all over the world, right? First of all, let's just start with pugs, right? Because I know this is a bit of a sore point with players in Australia, and I think I've heard you talk about it as well, or maybe I've heard of you speaking about it. We've not necessarily had a direct conversation, I don't think, about it, but I've heard that the pugging ecosystem in Australia is not great in comparison to what you play internationally. What was it like in China as well? How did things go over there? Like, could you just give me a bit of a quick TLDR on the ecosystem here versus where you've come from and how it is over there?
Europe is extremely competitive. It's like the most competitive place to be. So everyone's trying really hard. There's a lot of really good upcoming players there. So even if you want to be good, like there's like a 15-year-old Russian that's like just better than you, right? And everyone just tries really hard. Then you come here and it's not really like, it's not really, I don't want to say in your blood, but like people are not as competitive. Like they care more for going out and partying than for like achieving greatness.
What do you think is the reason for that? I have my suspicion, and I think when it comes to CS in Australia, it's not necessarily seen as a viable career in the same way that it is over in, let's say, Europe. We're particularly seeing like a lot of Eastern European players coming through, and the prospects for them that they can achieve in Counter-Strike are just so much monumentally better than... Like, look, let's say if you go and work at McDonald's in Australia, you're probably earning more than you would playing CS. If you do the same in Eastern Europe, there's a very good chance, actually, that if you're a decent player, you can really make an insane living as someone from those regions. So I think that, just generally speaking, the prospects here are like, well, I could play CS and make minimum wage, if not nothing, or I could get a real job. So try-harding at CS is just like a waste of time.
Yeah, you're spot on, Jordan. Back home, you don't actually need to be tier 1 for it to make sense for you. Meanwhile here, I feel like if you're tier 1 now, it's still like better than anything, probably. These guys make like unreal money, millions. But yeah, unless you like really go tier 1, it doesn't really like, make sense.
I would say, I think if you're not in like one of the top 2 or 3 teams in Australia, you're not even making money. Is that right? Like, how many of the teams here are really... We used to have, back in the day, there was probably, 4, 5 salaried teams, if we go back to the heyday, if we go back to...
That would have been like 2018, 2019 in Oceania.
Like Chiefs, Order, Legacy, Tainted Minds, Kings, Avant. These teams were all used to be paying salaries, but now the only teams that are salaried, as far as I understand, are FlyQuest, yourselves, and that's kind of about it. I don't think Rooster are salaried. House bets are getting a little bit.
The house bets are salaried, and you just had Talon, which was a huge fail, but like they were salaried, and they were salaried quite well.
And to be fair, I don't know if were they really an Australian team, or were they a team playing from... Were they an Australian player team playing internationally? You know what I mean?
Way, so.
They were a team that was playing internationally, right? In the same way that like they had their base, they had their organization, international organization, right? To be fair, FlyQuest is an international organization as well. So how many Australian salaried teams are there? 1, maybe 2. Semper-Fi being one of them. So
they were as Aussie as we are.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. You say that as a Latvian, so that makes sense. But you get my point. It's like I'm more talking about teams playing in Australia. We used to have 5 or 6 teams that played in Australia that earned money. Now there's not that many, certainly not. And it's definitely a tough thing to sort of grasp, I think, for the teams that, or sorry, for the players that are trying to kind of come through and get those opportunities.
I kind of want to quickly cut in, and this is maybe going back a little bit of things we were talking about, where you said outside of Tier 1, this was actually viable for you inside of Europe. Like, what is the salary expectation around there? Say, for example, if you're coming up, as you're starting off your career, when are people just playing for recognition, they're trying to get into better teams, or is it actually they're trying to grind out for, we want to get paid? What's like the goal when you start, and how people think?
I reckon both. I reckon there's a bunch of people that really just want to be the best at what they do, and they don't have like anything else, they can be the best. So it's CS like gives them that opportunity, and people love that, right? Something to grind for. But when it comes to like a strict number, it's hard to say. Like depends on like which country you're from. Back home, like mate, like €1,000, like you're fine. Like,
Is this a month we're talking about, or week?
Yeah. That'd be like what, 2K here, something like that.
Yeah,
it's
about
like
2,000 Australian.
Yeah. Back home, like that's fine.
It's not enough at all in Australia.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Back home, so and you get to do something you actually love, and instead of like slaving away. So obviously it's not sustainable, but you kind of get on that, like let's say 2K a month for until you achieve even more, right?
Yeah. And you can do that very realistically as like a 17-year-old and grow.
Exactly, and most players are like Russians that like don't go outside, and they're like what, like 13, 14, 15, just getting suddenly really good, suddenly earning like the same, money they would earn like working a job. So might as well continue and make more.
All right, let's pull it back a little bit to you and your team, Semper-Fi. I think it's probably fair to say that you guys are the number 2 team in Oz at the moment, if we consider.
Oh, let's take the parentheses off. Yeah.
Okay,
well,
let's take
number 2.
You're definitely number 2. I like that. I like that confidence. The only reason I actually say that in parentheses is because can we consider FlyQuest an, again, Australian team? They are obviously Australian. They are all Australian players, but the vast majority of where they compete actually is internationally. So are they an international team? In which case you guys would be the number 1 team in Australia. So I don't know if you want me to take those parentheses away.
Put them back on then.
Put them back on. Put them back on. But obviously you have to compete against them in the MRQ and those kinds of situations. But before we get into that MRQ discussion and how that all went, I actually just want to talk to you about in-game leading and a largely Australian team and kind of building this Semper-Fi roster, because obviously you've been there from the ground up, and you've been involved since the conversation started, I guess, right? Because it was you, as far as I understand, it's you, Savage, and Shady that were kind of like on board early. You bringing Shady in, I believe, and then building the rest of the team around that. So how did that kind of work? And I want to know, like, how much of an impact have you specifically had in building this team, as opposed to it being an organization-led thing? Because I can imagine a lot of it has generally been player-driven.
Yeah, the main 2 players was me and Savage. James trusted me to find somebody from Europe that I like, and then when it came to the 2 Aussies we picked up, we do interviews. Like James told me which nicknames would be good, and I did a few interviews, and ended up on Val and Vision. But I kind of trusted him like more when it came to the Oz players. And the recent pick of a Valley, that's like fully organizational. Like they've like Ben did good.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at some point as well, a little bit later on down the track, but I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on in-game leading this team as well, right? Because it feels, initially, like, the conversations around Semper-Fi are obviously Savage's dad, he made the team, it's Savage's team, but I kind of, the more I talk about it, the more I talk with people, I kind of get the feeling that you are quite a driving force behind this team as well, because you're the in-game leader, because you have a lot more experience, I guess, playing internationally than a lot of these guys that come from Australia. So how much of that, like, what, I don't want to, like, what's the power dynamic? That sounds like a really ridiculous
question. If I say
question.
jump, they'll jump.
You reckon?
If I say jump, they'll jump.
Yep.
If I ask Matthew to drop an AWP and run with the Glock, he's going to do that.
So it's your team. It's kind of the understanding that I'm getting.
Yes. It's loads of responsibility, and like I take it like with grace, and I trust my players, and I appreciate them like for what they do. But at the end of the day, final say is like me when it comes to in-game stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
I was going to say that sounds like a lot more of a system where it's just complete trust in each other, right? Where you have the players that don't necessarily have the ego. They have the kind of, we're going to believe in your vision the entire time. How do you cultivate something like that?
Aura.
Aura?
All right. Aura Farmer over here. Look, let's talk a little bit about results and expectations and that kind of thing as well. Are you happy with where the team's at the moment?
No, I want more.
You want more?
I want more.
So,
I want to make the major.
Fair enough. I think everyone wants to make the major. Let's talk the run in China. Okay, so you went to Extreme Side. You made top 8 there, I believe. You went to Mongolia. You went top 8 there, I believe, as well. You played in the MRQ. You take second. How have those experiences been like in comparison to what you would be used to? Like, are they kind of meeting expectations, those kinds of events, or are you still feeling like maybe they're underwhelming in a sense? You want to go higher than top 8? Like, I think expectations wise for me, when I saw you guys, I was like, okay, if they can make playoffs in an Extreme Sand, I'm kind of happy with that as a new team. I think now I'm kind of at that point, though, where I think, especially with the addition of Ali, I'm kind of wanting to see, especially if you go to like one of these Asia-based tournaments, a grand final appearance, if not even a qualification to a bigger international tournament.
Yeah, I feel like we're personally also at that stage where we want that. Otherwise, it feels like we're plateauing. Right, so we're gonna like work really hard for that to be actually the case. So yeah, when it comes to expectations, that's what we expect to do after like, not yet, like give us like 3 months time. Like let's see when the next tournament is. But yeah, we want to see ourselves in the grand final.
And one of the biggest concerns, I guess, for Australian teams has always been, and this has been a big talking point over the last couple of years, is that the scrim infrastructure, the practice here is not good. We can't improve because we don't get to play against better teams. How are you guys feeling about that? Because again, you are largely an Australian-based team, although you do a lot of boot camps overseas. What's your approach to that? What's your vibe on that? Where do you guys sit?
Yeah, it's super hard in Australia. There's like 4 or 5 teams. Most of them like worse. Other than FlyQuest, there's I feel like there's not much point like practicing the same team over and over and over and over again. So yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough. So you really do need a EU boot camp, which like Ben is like working really hard for. Like he's getting investors and stuff because it's obviously very expensive to go Europe and both living and having a while there. Like he actually did extremely good before Extremes Land because we were like having some issues, but like he sent us to Europe. We did it in a smart way and we spent there 2.5 months. It was during the player break though, so we didn't get to play like tier 1 teams, but still European like pracs. Like I'd rather play like tier 4 teams usually than like just the same Aussie team over and over again. So yeah, European boot camps are necessary for us to reach these like top positions.
All right, well then, you talked about Ali being an addition to the team as well, and that was being largely org-driven. Obviously, when a player like Alistair kind of comes available, I think it's pretty obvious that you do want to pick him up. And I have to say as well, it seemed like a pretty good pick up to me on paper. I think Alistair's a really, really good player. Obviously, he has this reputation overseas, if you will, but you bring him back into a domestic competition, and you've seen he kind of just owns. So I wanted to know, again, what that's kind of been like for you, and obviously you kind of relieved some of that pressure in the sense that you now don't have to AWP. You used to be the AWPing in-game leader, now you're obviously back on the rifle. How's that kind of experience been for you, and obviously integrating someone like him into the roster as well?
Yeah. Although that being said, like that it's an org like decision. Still, Ben, like I'd like to just point out that like Ben did come to me and say like, if you want him, we can get him. If you don't want him, we don't get him. Right. And it was like, I did agree with you. Yeah. Even though we like loved Vision, like our previous teammate, we absolutely loved him, but it just made sense. And yeah, so the org isn't just to like make sure like nobody thinks the org like just comes and like cuts whoever they want. Like they actually come to me and like ask for opinions, which is
that can be a thing, by the way, in teams. So just so you know.
Yeah. No, Ali's made it much easier for me personally. I am a bit crazy in the server. I do like pushing things, and I feel like with an AWP, I sometimes would feel the need like there needs to be an aggressive play here, but I'm not the player to do it because I'm AWPing. And I'd still do it, and it would it wouldn't be the best. Although I think I'm a good AWPer, I feel like I'd be a good AWPer like in the right circumstances where I have like a Xerxian type player.
More aggressive rifles.
Yes. Yeah. But when like you're the most aggressive player, I consider myself the most aggressive player in the team. Yeah. When you're that, I feel like I'm best suited on the rifles, which Ali is just like made it happen now, like with the addition of him. So it's made it in my life easier. Plus, he's a very vocal player. I trust him as a second in-game leader, which is something I always like search for in teams. Like I love having a second in-game leader that helps with the calls and pushing something. I'm doing something, and I need some voice behind me, like going like. All right, Keen's busy. Like, we're doing this.
Has he brought anything else that's not like server related, so to speak? Because obviously he's someone that has vastly more experience probably than anyone else on that team. Has he implemented anything into the way that you guys operate that has been beneficial in any way?
I think, he has aura. There's a reason why a lot of people want to take pictures with him, and there's a reason got so far. He's probably the best player to deal with losses. Like I've learned. So it's like he helps with losses. I think when we lose, he's like so mentally stable, which is you'd be surprised how rare that is. So he's like basically team aura has improved.
One of the things that I don't know if this is true, but one of the things that I felt like I saw when he came into the team with the. I would see you guys have a lot of close losses, for example, prior to that, and then I watched you at Defrag, and there was like a very, very close result. I think it might have been against X-Talon or Rooster in one of the opening games, and I saw him talking a lot during these like tighter moments, particularly to someone like Savage. I think he was sitting next to Savage, and there would be like frustrating moments that were kind of happening, and I felt like he was like a little bit of like let's say a calming influence on the team. Is that a correct read, or am I reading into it a bit too much?
Spot on. Yeah, spot on.
Let's go me.
Yeah, go you. No, yeah, he's chill as fuck.
That's good. Yeah, and I think that definitely is something that, again, for a team that is still kind of developing, can be pretty influential. But let's talk the MRQ run, because now we've kind of caught up with all of the past history, and now we're kind of like getting almost up to the present day of things. MRQ run, expectations obviously pretty high for Semper-Fi going in. I was doing my fault, but I sort of went in with the mentality of, okay, FlyQuest are going to win this, but I want to see FlyQuest at least push it, and I want I want Semper-Fi to push it, and I want Semper-Fi to beat the other teams, because I think the expectation is, look, you guys are salaried, there's more investment in you guys than there is in any other Oceanic-based team. You've obviously got international imports, which are yourselves. You guys need to be at least second. And you also obviously were quite comfortably second. You, I think, didn't drop a map to Talon. It was 2-2-0s. Close series. The second one in particular went to overtime, I think, in one of the maps. But didn't really have a huge amount of success against FlyQuest, apart from the first, 6 or 7 rounds of that first game on Inferno. It was looking pretty damn good. We were like, whoa, hang on, stop the count right now. These guys are looking like they might be able to beat FlyQuest. But look, FlyQuest kind of turn it on. They do those things. They're the best team in the region for a reason. But what were your expectations going into the MRQ, and were they met? Were you guys happy with the MRQ run? What was kind of the vibe there?
There was obviously pressure. This whole rosters has been made to qualify for the major, right? Anything short of that is a failure. Even if we do something like in other tournaments, it really doesn't matter, because it's like just for the major, pretty much. That's what we want. But Benjamin did come in the room and say, "Hey, I've secured more investment. We're gonna have another run, so no pressure. If you guys lose, you lose."
So you get another 6 months. You get another major cycle, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So that was that put a lot of pressure off us, but obviously we still want to make that one. Yeah, I don't know. They were just way too good. They were just way too good. I feel like there were some unlucky moments, and I feel like we couldn't bounce back from them, especially Mirage.
What about the rest of the competition, right? Because like I said, you got a 2-2-0s, I think, against X-Talon. You didn't even end up playing against Rooster. Where are you guys sort of sitting in that, do you feel like? Because it seems to me like you're actually quite significantly above any of the other Oceanic-based teams at the moment. X-Talon are kind of are they even a team at the moment? What's going on with them? Obviously integrating Brace, that's not so easy in such a short amount of time. Where do they go as a team? Obviously Rooster have been jostling around the in-game leadership role as well, with Chell taking it back off of TJP, and they're a bit up and down at the moment as well. So yeah, I mean, I think definitely it's looking like you guys are very, very comfortably sitting in number 2 at the moment, if you will. But is that a comfortable position for you guys, or do you even actually still feel like you are actually being tested by some of these Oceanic teams at the moment? Because it doesn't really seem like it at the moment in the server.
So there's one thing I've learned through my career, and nothing is for free. Nobody's ever going to give me anything for free. So every single time we meet Talon, or we meet Housebets, or we meet Rooster, we go we could lose this game. Right. So let's lock in and let's not lose this game. And I feel like that mentality actually helps us always win. Though I'll give them credit. If we start slacking, I feel like they could beat us. It's Counter-Strike. I feel like it's MR13. Win pistols, anything can happen. Lose a force buy, so we really lock in.
I'm just saying, bro. I saw a team win 2 pistols on stage yesterday, and they got 13 forwards. So pistols ain't everything. But look, let's move it away from Semper-Fi. Let's move it away from you and talk a little bit more about Oceanic Counter-Strike just in general. Obviously, being that we're here at IEM Melbourne, one of the focal points will always be FlyQuest, and they're now the team that's going to go and represent us at the major as well. I want to get your thoughts on where FlyQuest is sitting at the moment, and integrating Nettik and all of that. I thought at the MRQ, and I thought at the IEM Melbourne matches that they played, I think they actually looked pretty good. Like I'm obviously someone that, in some senses, has to be a little bit critical about FlyQuest and Greyhound and whatever their previous iterations are at times, just when the performances aren't there, and that's just the nature of being a pundit in the scene. But on the same token, I kind of want to give them the accolades when things are going well, and I think as far as a new addition coming into the roster and the results that they've had so far, it looks pretty good to me so far.
So I have a theory. When it comes to like team changes, I'm not a big believer in in 7 months, in 8 months we're gonna be good. It's gonna like take us time to get good. I'm not really a believer in that. What I've noticed is when people make changes, they're good from the get-go.
Right.
And that's what they've done. They won against us comfortably. They came, they beat VP, they took a map off Navi immediately without like practicing that much. So in my books, they're good. Like they've perfect. Like what they've done is perfect.
Yeah, and I think as well, Nettik, as an individual, took a little bit to. I feel like at Melbourne in particular, it kind of took him a little bit to get going. There was a couple of like slower maps, not to the level that we've come to expect from him domestically, but there was 1 or 2 good maps towards the back end as well that were you could kind of look at and go, I felt like he did pretty good, right? So that in itself as well for a player kind of like stepping into those roles. And like I almost wonder if, have you kind of gone through the same thing with, I think Vision in particular was someone that hadn't had a huge amount of experience. I feel like Semper-Fi was definitely the best team that he's ever been in. So could you maybe speak from that world? Like did he, and paralleling that to Nettik's, maybe jump into FlyQuest and playing at another level? Is there like this difficulty, I guess, for players going from like one part of their career playing domestically and then jumping into international tournaments, big international tournaments, big pressure, big expectations? Or is that, something that we just as casters kind of like overreact to a little bit?
No, it's a real thing. It's a real thing, and I think Nettik is comfortably like at the moment the worst player. But that being said, with like the highest ceiling to actually like overtake everyone type of deal.
Right.
Just because he's like new to all of that. But I reckon Nettik's like much different than Vision. Yeah, like our team was like Vision's best team and so on. But from what I've like gathered, like listening to a lot of people, it feels like Nettik needed this break like he deserved it a long time ago. From everyone I've talked to, he's had this aura in the Oz scene, like that he kind of deserves to be on FlyQuest. It just never happened before. So I reckon from his point of view, now he's like supposed to be there, type of deal. Not like he got lucky, like he actually finally earned it.
It's good. It's definitely good to sort of see him slotting in. I think as well, Kev, I don't know if you can maybe speak to this, because you were obviously around when Nettik was kind of starting to come through.
Yeah,
the ANZ
I was still pugging a little bit back then. He dropped 30 in his first year.
I want to say, I think he's the most hyped addition to the Greyhound-esque core that we've had probably since like Liazz went international to 100 Thieves, if that makes sense. Like, talk about like what if we're talking about aura, we use the aura word. His aura domestically sort of, to me, gives the same vibe as what Liazz had when he first got picked up overseas, what Gratisfaction had when he first got picked up to go and play overseas. And even when like these Greyhound guys, like again, I throw the names out like Malta, Dick Stacey, Ian, Sicko, those kinds of guys, like they were good when they played in Australia, but I don't think that they had that same like aura that Nettik had.
Yeah, and I think that's... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
I was going to say that I think the most exciting part about seeing kind of Nettik and a lot of these players, and the reason why a lot of people go that he's got all this aura and things like that, is the fact that he has proven it against international opponents. And that's always been the big question for us when we're watching all this Oceanic talent. We're going, well, yeah, I'd say, for example, with the Vertex boys, with Brace and whatnot, we were very excited for them because we were going, oh, these guys are looking like they're second and third in Oceania back 2 or 3 years ago. And then we saw them going international. We just didn't see them kind of go and pop off, right? When we were talking about like 1.1 ratings, 1.2 ratings, we're seeing Nettik have that potential. And I think that's kind of why. We saw Liazz have that ability to go really, really well. We saw that now. We're seeing that ability with Nettik, especially with that stint inside Talent. We're seeing that ability to actually go toe-to-toe with the world's best. And when you're able to match up with the world's best, that's kind of where everyone's starting to get really excited, because that's the real deal. You're not just doing it against... No offense to the Oceanic guys, you're not just farming Oceania like Sicko used to do. You're you're putting up numbers against Vitality.
Yeah,
You're putting up numbers against Na'Vi. These are not
as
your
easy.
backwater teams. No offense once again to the Oceanic teams, but there is a huge realm of difference between some of the tier 1 teams.
What about Inz as an IGL? What's your take on that? Because he tried it before, took a bit of a break with Dexter coming back in. He's back to it now. Are you a fan or are you not a fan?
I am not a fan.
Right.
And there's and I think I said this yesterday inside the press room. I'm not saying that he's not going to be a serviceable IGL, but there's being able to be a serviceable IGL, and there's a difference between being a top-level IGL, and I think that's still a very different skill set that comes into it, which doesn't mean that FlyQuest aren't going to have the success and everything. I just feel like it still is a very... Being an IGL occupies so much, and I don't know if you necessarily agree with me here. It's just so much of a different kind of level of... You either have it or you don't, I feel like, and... The guys that have it know they have it, and the guys that don't have it, I don't know. It's like such a tangible thing in my mind.
Basically, you're just saying he's not an IGL. Like
I don't think his strength is
he's
an
a round
IGL.
peg in a square hole. Is kind of like the vibe I'm getting from what you're saying. Right.
And that's not me trying to diminish. Like, I have a lot of respect for Josh and things like that, but I just don't think his strength is being an IGL.
All right.
Truth be told.
What's your take then, King? Because obviously, you're someone that's in that IGL position. What do you think? And also, I assume you have played against FlyQuest Scrim-wise prior to that change with Dexter being in the team here and there, or maybe you've watched their games. Have you noticed anything different? What do you think of Inz coming in as IGL? Is that a good move or a bad move?
See, I don't think he's like this tactical mastermind that's going to come in and like just revamp the whole team, but I feel like their team kind of operates like on a level. And he just kind of needs to maintain that, and they're fine. Like long term, maybe if they want to go the Mongolz route, right, and actually go top 4 in the world, top 5 in the world, right, then yeah, sure, it might be a problem, but I can focus on that when that problem actually arrives. Now that they're just trying to like be competitive in tier 1, I reckon he's just good enough.
Yeah, look, honestly, my take on the situation is I actually think I think it can work for sure. The thing is, like, obviously when he last in-game led, he was a younger player, younger person. Now he's got a bit more experience, has been playing internationally again for another 2 years on top of when he was previously IGLing. And I would say he's got better pieces around him in this iteration of his team as well. So, you look at what Regali was able to do in the group stages of IEM Melbourne. I think he's really finding his feet in this team. I wasn't super sold on that as an addition initially. Like, I thought Alistair had a pretty good end to his time in that roster. I would have given him a little bit more time, frankly. But, I was like, oh, okay, look, Regali, I'm coming around to this. He did very, very well. He carried them in some of those games, in some of those maps. You've got Vexite, who I feel like is also starting to come online as a rifler in this team after having now had his time. Nettik coming in. He's definitely a strong rifler that we've seen domestically. And honestly, even Liazz kind of feels like he's hitting his stride a little bit at the moment in this iteration. So I don't know if this is just like, is this a honeymoon period for FlyQuest? But I've got a lot of positive things to say about a lot of the individuals on that roster at this point in their iteration. So I think it surely must be easier as an in-game leader, like when you've got these good pieces around you versus when you're like, look, let's say you in your position, Keen, I think are one of the better players in your team, right? And I think that was the case for Inz in his previous team as well. And there's a lot of responsibility on not only on you to make good calls, not only on you to build these strats, to build the game plan, to read the game well, but it's also a lot of onus on you to hit the shots in the server and frag well. And that was what it felt like for Inz back in the Greyhound era. He was him. He was the in-game leader. He was the star player. If he didn't frag, there was no one else fragging. Now, I kind of get a bit of a different vibe. So surely that must make his life a bit easier.
Yeah. I reckon you're spot on. If you ask me, like, could he bring 4 youngsters up to the top? I reckon no. Like, that requires special type of person, right? Like a true IGL, like somebody like, how James brought like VP to the major, won the major with like, younger players, and he really made it count, like what he did. But like, I feel like if you have really good players around you, you actually don't need to be that impressive. You kind of need to, again, just maintain and like be stable.
All right, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I've got positive vibes. Let's just say, so we'll kind of get a bit of a.
The whole team's good, and you know what I'm actually excited for? Nettik, right? It's like the best team changes something, and it's not like they're gonna take somebody who's like 1.3 ratings, playing star player positions in a different team, and you come anchor for us. No, Nettik's actually come, and he's going to take the star player positions, which means like the roster's like really nice positionally. Like
put him in his comfort positions, and everyone's kind of got what they want, right? I think you have a really strong rifling core with the Vexite, Nettik and In's core, and then obviously Liazz is off doing what he needs to do on the other side of the map, anchoring, and he's made that role his own, and Regali's again kind of starting to swim in the roster, which is kind of cool to see. So I agree with you as well. I think that the roles sort of fit quite nicely. Let's move on to Mongolz. Again, it is an Asia CS podcast. We've got to talk about Mongolz so we can get our clicks. They've done reasonably well up to expectations, I would say, at IEM Melbourne so far. The game yesterday, I didn't actually get to watch because I was asleep. I had to get up at 4:30 a.m. to make it here, so I didn't get to watch it, but I did see the result. Vitality today, though. I mean, do we think they can beat Vitality? No.
I'm harsh. As you probably found out, I'm quite harsh, and maybe I don't mince my words. And it doesn't mean I don't want these teams to succeed, right? Like going back to the FlyQuest point now, Mongolz. I do want them to succeed, but it's Vitality at this point. Yeah. I think there's like the part of optimism going, I'm hoping for an upset. Reality is often very cruel.
Yeah, that's the thing. Vitality is exactly what we were just talking about. FlyQuest. There's no gaps in that roster. Like everyone is good, and Apex is actually a good IGL. Yeah. He's made it work with worse pieces. Surely he can't like mess this up with such good pieces. But then again, I don't know. Mongolz just keep surprising me. Like you tell me how have they even got here? Like that thus far. Like they're just amazing.
I did hear that they're making Techno the IGL now, though. Blitz has moved off of IGL.
Oh, I saw he's on the side, isn't he? Yeah, he's like sitting. No, I had questions about that.
So that's kind of wild to me. That is like that's the same thing that kind of FlyQuest have done. It's like Dexter's not IGL anymore. Inz is IGL. And it's like, what's going on here? So
but they didn't kick the guy. Like,
no, that's true. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like for Mongolz, this change is like kind of a wild one. Personally, to me, it almost seems like there's some nervousness within the team. They've hit this plateau that they think like, oh, we're at a plateau now. How can we get better? Can we get better with the way the roster is currently shaped? It seems like they've answered no, right? And we need to make a bit of a change. Let's try Techno as an IGL. That'll free up Blitz a little bit and see what happens there. So that to me is kind of like what that screams from that mental side of things. So I don't know if that's a positive sign necessarily for me. I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt and see what happens. But it's wild to think that, like, obviously over the last 12 months, everyone's been like, oh yeah, Blitz is this GOAT IGL, Mara's this GOAT coach, like he's just like a, what's the word, like some sort of savant, he's kind of come out of nowhere, and now it's like, oh, by the way, Techno's the IGL. So it's like, what happened there?
They amaze me. They come from nowhere, build this roster, do so great internationally as a Mongolian mix, and they're doing great. But to them it feels like they plateau, so they make more changes, and then they go even further. Yeah. And now they think like
it's like you're making top 4 at international S tier,
and
mega
it's not
events,
enough,
and it's not good enough. Like, come on, guys.
Well,
come on.
That's the championship mentality, though, right?
Yeah,
like number one's not until you get number 1. It's not good enough, right?
See, that's my point. They've done it before, so. Hey, let's see. Maybe the golden, the golden 5.
The golden 5. We'll see. Look, if they could go out and beat Vitality today, I'll be in the crowd and I'll be Mongolian today.
Yeah,
but
let's get a shoe from you.
I've got my Mongolz jersey in the backpack. It's ready to go. We'll see how they go. Wish them all the best, but
probably not.
By the time this episode releases on YouTube, probably will know.
I was going to say, Rops has been enemy number 1 how many times? He's
true.
Do it again,
he killed us back in, was it in Mals when they played against
IEM Sydney 2018, I believe.
Against Renegades.
Rops just destroyed Renegades, and I'm expecting Rops, unfortunately, to destroy the Mongols.
Yeah. Look, we want to wrap this up shortly, but I want to touch on a couple of non-CS topics here as well, with regard to you, Kim, because look, you seem like I think you're a pretty cool dude. You know what I mean?
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, like
I think you're pretty cool too.
I think you've got aura. And one of the things that I've noticed about your aura is you're obviously a very fit guy. I remember walking downstairs at Defrag Invitational, and you and Savage were doing like chin-ups or something on just some random bar. It was not a pull-up bar. It was not a gym bar. It was just like it was like a bollard, basically, if anyone wants to know. So I want to know, like, obviously that's a big thing in your life, and gaming is obviously also a big thing in your life. And without sounding too, like, not pretentious or anything about it, but like, I think it's kind of a cool thing to like just discuss in this space, because a lot of people are not into that in this space, and I think it is something that is important, health and fitness and lifestyle and that kind of thing. So what's your take on that? Like where do you sit with regard to all that? Is that, am I reading too much into it again, or are you you feel like that's a really important part of your life?
My life, yes. I feel like one too many players have proved that you don't need it to actually achieve in anything in CS. But personally, I've just done it my whole life. When I was a kid, I played basketball for years competitively, and then I had an injury, so I do calisthenics, pull-ups and stuff. So it's just kind of part of my life, and I don't really focus on it anymore. Like CS is like the number one for me. So if I'm busy, if I have like an interview, if I have like a coaching session, if I have anything, like I'll drop gym like easily, but I'll never like quit fully. It's still like a huge part.
The thing for me though is like I find that it's very easy, not easy obviously, but like it's easy to set up these habits, and I'm sure this is where it's at for you, is that you've built it in as part of it's just your life. You don't really think about it, it's just a habit. Whereas a lot of people in this space probably need that little extra step and haven't built that as part of their lifestyle, and I think that it's something that we probably should discuss a little bit more in this space. Kev, I know, obviously you've had a bit of a transformation as well. You used to be a little bit chubbier.
Yeah, when I started casting with this guy, I was probably about 10 kilos heavier. So that was like for 3 years, and it was very stereotypical in the sense as you're growing a bit older. Now I'm like 32 this year. Yeah. But when I started commentating, 22, 23, coming out of high school, you're highly active, and then you stop being active because you're just playing games a lot more. And I think I just got sick of it. I was just sick of just waking up with zero energy, and I went, no, I'm going to not go like hard on, because I know like some people go, I got to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm going to do all these things. I think I just went, no, I'm going to go to the gym 2 days a week. I'm just going to fix my diet. And that just helps so much.
And it's not hard once you kind of get it going, right? Like, and this is what you're saying. It's like it's not something that you necessarily have to focus on. I will say, like, I'm not like super giga jacked or anything like that, but I
used to be a stick,
mate. I could run 10 kilometers right now. Wouldn't have been able to do that 10 years ago. Wouldn't have been able to do that 5 years ago. And it's not as hard as people think, to be honest.
See, that's healthy. Like just comparing yourself today to yourself yesterday and just getting better. That's nice. Yeah. But I feel like you give me a bit too much credit, because I reckon a lot of me is past trauma. It's like where I come from. Like back home,
everybody needs motivation.
See, I was forced like to do sports my whole life. So I kind of. The self-image I have of myself is like, if I do have free time, I should be spending it on like my health and like fitness, and I can't not. Like it's not.
I think that is the mentality that a lot of people need, to be honest. And maybe I'm pushing it a bit too hard, but I think everyone should be thinking about their health, and I think it's something that's not discussed enough in this space. That's
I was going to say as well, I feel like that, because you say that was pushing you from childhood and things like that, but that's clearly something, that discipline that you've kind of carried forward. You said you played basketball relatively competitively, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, we practice 5 days a week. Saturdays would be game days. Travel.
I feel like that discipline and that drive has now also gone into a little bit into how you approach CS. Like you are very meticulous in terms of how you approach a lot of these things. So I feel like it's kind of like hand in hand, right? It's that discipline and that drive and wanting to improve and wanting to always get better. That's kind of why your fitness level is still pretty good alongside the Counter-Strike. So
yeah. I feel like I just have unreal competitive drive. If I'm not doing CS, I'm in the gym. If I'm not in the gym, I'm playing chess and trying to like win. I just can't stop.
Open offer. Tomorrow I'm going for a run at 9 a.m. along the river, and if you want to come and race me, let's go. 9 a.m.
Let's do it.
I'll see you there. Okay, just to wrap it up, as we get to the end of the episode, Keen's strat book. I've heard this is a bit of a thing, okay? Keen is very well known for having videos on offer anytime someone needs to have a discussion about something. So talk to me a little bit about this. What's going on here?
All right, years ago, I decided...
Wait, first of all, was it called The Big Strat?
The Big Strat.
The Big Strat.
The Big Strat.
See, I've done my research.
Yeah, so you've heard of The Big Strat.
I've heard of The Big Strat. Apparently it's pretty intense.
Oh, yeah. It's I don't use it anymore. I've kind of like...
mellowed out?
No, I've found like more effective ways, but basically, I feel like a lot of pro players achieve things without actually like setting out to like achieve things. Let me say it, like I feel like it just happens. I feel like a lot of pro players are just nerds, and for them it worked, and for like other people it didn't. Right? Other people are failures. These guys are actually like tier 1 suddenly. But not because they like went out and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this.
Intentional.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of tier 1 players might not actually be there intentionally, just like because they're nerds, right?
Yep.
Meanwhile, me, like years ago, I set out like I want to be tier 1. You know, no matter like how good I am or I'm not, I'm gonna approach this as a subject at school that I can learn. Right. So I'd watch hundreds of demos, and I wouldn't trust my own memory to like memorize everything, because obviously even lineups or different strategies, I just can't trust myself. I'd watch 100 demos, I wouldn't remember the first 65.
Yep.
So what I started doing is recording absolutely anything in any category, and just uploading to YouTube, unlisted, putting it in Google Sheets.
I love it. I love it.
Putting it
It's
in
so
compartments.
nerdy, but I love it.
I fully nerded out and like made a thing, and and it serves me well. Like would serve me well with these international mixes where I would build a strat book from scratch. Like any team I join, like just like that. I go like to the big strat. I go like, here's a video, 5 POVs. You're Dexter. You're Nico. You're Monacy.
Yeah.
Watch the video.
This is how I want you to play this position, kind of thing, like that.
Yeah, this strat. Now, overall macro, I'd like explain like more like what I want, but like when it came to just specific strats, I just had them like rolling, like off a conveyor belt, pretty much.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I was going to say we should offer him an honorary citizenship, because we have a lot of big things in Australia. That feels like the tourist attraction. We have the...
Have you ever been to the big pineapple or the big banana or the big prawn? I think there's a big prawn somewhere.
Big prawn, big lobster, that kind of thing. The big strat, that's going to be the next big thing in Australia,
I can show you guys later the big strat. Fun fact.
I want to see it.
Fun fact, Dexter, actually, when I think he was playing in Maus, because I made a tweet of the big strat, he actually approached me and asked for it.
Oh.
And I almost gave it to him, and Heku was like, are you crazy? You're just going to give away all
That's
your
your intellectual property, mate.
And I was like... All right, I can give you the template, and then he said, like, "Nah, I figured it out myself already." Apparently, he liked the way I structured things.
Awesome. There you go. All right. Well, that wraps us up for Geographically Challenged episode number 82. Any shout-outs you want to make before we say goodbye?
I just jumped on a short.
You don't need to make shout-outs, Kev.
No shout-outs from my side.
You mostly.
Shout out Semper-Fi. Ben is running a raffle. You guys can win a Semper-Fi jersey if you take a picture with any one of us, and I think more of my teammates are going to be here later. And post it with a hashtag that I do not remember, but you can see it on the
Semper-Fi selfie, I think it was.
Semper-Fi selfie.
Yeah.
There you go. So post that on Twitter or Instagram, and you enter a raffle. You might win this, and yeah.
Literally the shirt off of Keen's back.
Surely not.
It's even got. You're going to sign it afterwards, right?
I don't know if this one's going. I don't think I have a replacement. So it depends when my next tournament is. But
unfortunate.
Yeah,
I do have one shout out actually.
Right.
I have a shout out to one person, Jay. That's it. So
Shout out to Jay.
shout out to Jay.
Whoever Jay is.
Yeah.
Could be anybody.
Could be anybody.
All right, I have a few shout outs. Obviously, I want to give a shout out to Defrag. Obviously, we're here at IEM Melbourne in the Defrag booth. And we would love to see you guys go over to defrag.gg and check out the forums there if you're interested. Obviously, that's a bit of a throwback, right? Forums don't really exist anymore. But I know a lot of people kind of missing out on the forums. They want to get involved, and that's where it is now. They're trying to kind of bring back the old CG forums vibe. So if you're someone that's still watching this and you're from OzCS and you missed CG forums, check out defrag.gg. Obviously, they're doing some good stuff in the community as well. So appreciate what they're being able to do and support them and support everything. If you're here at IEM Melbourne, obviously come down, say hello. And if you're not here at IEM Melbourne, that has been Geographically Challenged episode number 82. Check out buymeacoffee.com/Elfishguy if you would like to support financially. And we'll see you in the next one.